Let's look at how to define the purpose for the social relationships category. Quality of life, as we said, is closely related to the quality of relationships in our world. The two categories or the two aspects of our life which make up goals for almost anyone and everyone hover around career and finance. We want to meet the goals that we set for ourselves on our career and on our finance so that we can get to this level of happiness and fulfillment that we desire for ourselves within this ideal vision of the world that we desire for ourselves, whether it's the ideal home, the ideal place to live at, the ideal lifestyle. Now, that's a combination of the three types of relationships that we've covered in the last two episodes and today. That's a combination of the relationship that you have with your partner, the relationships that you have in your family or with your kids, and the relationships that you have with your extended family and your friends. You want to be conscious about who are within this network of three types of relationships, because they have the ability to become the wellspring of energy, a network of success and advice and encouragement for you. If it's not doing that for you, then there's something wrong with this picture, and you need to rewrite that story. So, do your relationships with your immediate, your extended family and your friends feed your need for joy and happiness in your world? Why do you believe you should invest, not just spend, but invest your time, your effort, your emotions into your social relationships? How do you think they're going to impact you in your world, in various categories of your life? How do you think you can impact the relationships that you have with your extended family and with your friends? This is how you can define the why behind the importance of social relationships in your life as you design the blueprint for tomorrow. Now, again, we're not talking about the relationships in the past or the relationships as they stand today. You assess them on the status of where they sit on your values meter or on your alignment or your purpose meter today. But we're talking about the kind of relationships based on this assessment that you want to have for tomorrow, right? So you want to talk about and think about it from a future aspect, not just from your present aspect. The present is just for the assessment. So talking about that, let's see what kind of action steps that we can take once you've defined your premise, your vision, and your purpose for the social relationships in your life. Friends, as I said, have always been a very, very big part of my life. But for the longest time, the only criteria for having friends was having fun, social gatherings, music, parties. I wasn't very conscious about the friends that I had relationships with, or the friends of friends that I ended up becoming friends with. It was great, but many of them were emotionally draining. It made me a highly sensitive person. People leaned on me, I leaned on others. This emotional drain was infectious. There was more despair and tears than joy and happiness. There was more gossip than real meaningful relationships. That's when I decided to make a conscious effort on clearing out, making an assessment and clearing out my social world. I decided to set boundaries so that my expectations could be managed better with the friends that I had within my social circle at the time. And you know what? Once those boundaries were set, that behaved like a sift through the social connections that I had in my world, because only the real ones survived it. So that's one good test of how you can sift through the social relationships in your world. Today, The relationships that I have in my life are all meaningful. They're energizing, they're empowering. Those are relationships that I have chosen, that I have set boundaries for, so that they're not emotionally draining, so that they don't just contribute to my growth and improvement, but I equally, mutually are able to contribute, I'm able to contribute to the growth and improvement of others with whom I have these relationships. So a few suggestions and some steps on what kind of strategy you can get started on in designing the blueprint of your life in the social category. You want to get clarity on your social values. What are the values that you stand by, that you want, that you expect to be connected with other people on? Is it about love? Is it about respect? Is it about punctuality? Is it about certain common interests? Is it about the type of mindset that they have towards life? What is that common platform of values that you want to seek and invest into relationships for? What are the negotiables? What are the non-negotiables? You want to have clarity on this. It makes the whole process a lot more easy and less draining on yourself. When you don't have your values and your negotiables and non-negotiables clearly defined, then every time a situation presents itself in terms of an expectation from another person, that you haven't set boundaries with, you find yourself in an emotional conflict between not wanting to respond to it in the way that the other person expects and feeling obligated to. So a lot of the times we end up managing relationships that we don't actually want, but they're there and we continue to stay obligated to them. So get clarity on your social values. Now, the next one is a slightly tough one and tricky one for many if you haven't done this before, but trust me, it is really powerful. And that is extracting the anchors in your social world. Extracting those relationships, weeding out those relationships that are more draining rather than energizing. Weeding out those relationships where you show up with minimal investment of your time and more of a plan of exit strategy rather than how do I improve and nurture strategy. These are the type of relationships where events, invitations, when they come, you don't actually look forward to them. You respond and react to them as expected and fulfill them only out of obligation. Life is short. We've got only one. So the choice is yours on the way that you want to live it with the people that you want to share it with. It's yours. Own it. You are responsible for your own joy and happiness with the selections and the choices that you make for your life. So I go through my address book, my contacts list on my phone once a year, sometimes twice a year, to run through and clear out all of those dormant contacts that I probably haven't heard from or I myself haven't reached out to in over a year. We hoard clothes and contact lists. How many clothes are there in your wardrobe that you probably haven't worn, but you also don't even remember you still have them? You don't need them. If you haven't thought about them in over a year, if you haven't worn them in over a year, they serve you no purpose at all. And all they're doing is taking up space in your wardrobe. The same way, if you haven't had a meaningful conversation with a contact in your phone for over a year, then you need to give yourself permission to delete it. Feels tough in the beginning, but trust me, it is liberating, hugely liberating. You will find a heavy load off your shoulder of relationships that you've been carrying without any meaning, and those that may not be aligned with your purpose and your vision today. They may have in the past, but they don't today, and that's okay. You can give your permission to extract yourself from it and to delete it from your life. It's not like ripping a bandage, but make yourself less available to these contacts. Don't say yes to every invitation. Let it phase out. Once the weeding is done, it will be easier to maintain and tend to your garden of relationships, because it will only have the relationships that you've chosen and that you want in your life. I hope you found today's episode interesting. I look forward to seeing you again tomorrow, where we'll be covering financial category, something that touches all of us and something that we all aspire towards. If today's episode brought up some questions for you, drop me a line below in the comments section. Until then, take care and stay awesome.